And we are live with an intrepid traveler to Turkey who is an expert in fare deals, interesting destinations, a lot to get into. Welcome, and I will have you pronounce your name. When I see your name, it reminded me of like a 1920s Hollywood star. It's a dashing, daring do name.
Yeah, well, in French, the S at the end is silent, so it's Andrew Damour. But yeah, I've heard it in very, very different ways all across the world.
Fantastic. And you are Canadian, so I imagine you've heard many versions of the French as well as the English interpretation.
Yes.
Fair deals. I think we've seen a lot of sites pop up. You have created Flytrippers, and there's coverage in a number of markets, but very heavily Canada. So for people that have seen these emails, haven't really processed what a fair deal site does, how it works, give us the intro of Flytrippers.
Yeah, so basically there are so many discounted flights that go out there, but if you're not looking for the specific destination and the specific dates that are on sale, you'll probably never hear about them, and your odds of finding them on your own are really low, unfortunately. So basically what we do is, instead of you inputting dates and you inputting destinations, we're not a booking website, so we just curate the dates that are on sale and we publish those on our website. So it's kind of the opposite way around. We're so used to searching for specific dates, but so you go on our website, like we're heavily in Canada, but we started spotting deals in the U.S. before the pandemic started. So we'll get back to that really soon with the U.S. So major U.S. cities. So let's say you log into Flytrippers New York, you'll see today there's Madrid for 200 round trip. Here are the dates that are on sale. So you have to be somewhat flexible for the dates, but basically just the way for you to find the discounted dates without having to do like thousands of searches every day like we do.
Oh, excellent. And I feel there's a real connection with those of us trying to go to every country in the world or to so many places, and that it's not hard for us to pick where to go if we're trying to go everywhere. And so when we can just pick and choose by when a great deal pops up. And
yeah, exactly. I've visited like 50 countries in the last 3 years, and most of them, almost all of them, are started with a fare deal. Like, okay, there's this really cheap flight. I went to South Africa, from Montreal to South Africa, for $400 US round trip. I mean, that's less than half the regular price. So would I have gone there right away if I hadn't found that deal? Probably not. But at 400 round trip, I was like, okay, let's go. And then I visited like Zimbabwe, Zambia, and all the countries in that area. So.
And how was that trip? You said you're a young traveler, as we can see by your handsome face, and you're increasing the numbers, and that's a region that so many of us have cherished and loved.
Yeah, it was actually only my second time in Africa. So first time was in West Africa, which was very, very different than anywhere I'd been before. But South Africa, like Southern Africa, I really loved. I did the epic 36-hour train ride from Victoria Falls all the way down to Gaborone, Botswana. I'm usually I love flying. I usually fly, but this was just felt like a cool thing to do. I think it's 1,200 kilometers. So like you can do the math for miles. So 1,000 kilometer, 36-hour, terribly low speed train. It's almost laughable. I think the average, I counted, like the average speed was like 25 kilometers per hour. So like, what's that, like 15 miles per hour? It's really, really slow, and it just stops in the middle of nowhere, like in the savannah, with just people on the side of the tracks that just jump in onto the train. So it was definitely a once in a lifetime experience. I'm glad I just did it in one direction, like didn't want to do 36 hours in a row like twice. But yeah, I flew there, then went all the way back, and that was a fun experience. I went to Victoria Falls. For those who don't know, it's like one of the biggest falls in the waterfalls in the world. And when it's dry season, you can actually swim right on the edge of the falls. So that was a pretty cool experience. You're literally like 5 feet from one of the highest drops in the world, and you're just swimming there. Like, it's pretty impressive.
Wow, I'm not familiar with this train. So what's the booking process? What are the options for cabins?
Yeah, so it's actually 2 separate trains. Well, actually 3 separate trains. That they're all the schedules are linked up to coincide and make it one trip. So I've read it's better doing the other way. So if you're really looking for better views, you're better off going to Victoria Falls in the train. So you would start from Gaborone. It's a nice beautiful brand new train, sleeper train that goes to Francistown, which is also in Botswana. Then you switch for a daytime train, which is a really short one from Botswana to into what's it called? No, that was Francistown. Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. And then that's where you take the really long one, the Zimbabwe. It's a really old 1950s era train, I think. Still has the markings of Rhodesia Railways, so just to give you an idea. So it's really old. And then that's the longest part. I think that one was like 20 or so hours, another sleeper train. You get this really nice cabin. The bedding is not included. There was no pillows, no bedding, nothing at all, which was the first time for a sleeper train for me. So usually there's at least, a pillow, but not in Zimbabwe. But on the bright side, I think it cost me like $5 for that 800-mile journey. So the cheapster in me was really happy about that. But yeah, it was quite an experience. But yeah, I definitely recommend it, at least in one direction, if you really like seeing probably landscapes that you would never see any other way, like across Zimbabwe and Botswana. It's just, especially for me, being all new to visiting Africa, it was really fun.
That's great. Yeah, I've not after my early start in travels in China with so many train rides, I've let that slip a bit. In certain specific countries, South Korea, Japan, I've been on trains, but around Europe, I almost always rent cars, and these iconic train journeys I haven't taken. Devjit is saying next try the Tazara train from Dar to Zambia. That's one that's on his bucket list, and he congratulates you for starting in West Africa. That's that can,
yeah, well, that
be
wasn't my choice. I just actually was invited to an event in Senegal, so I was like, oh, let's extend that trip. So I just went on my way overland from Dakar to Guinea-Bissau, which is a country not many people have heard of, outside of our community of country collectors. So Bissau, Portuguese, and really just everything was unlike anything I'd seen before. Especially for first time in Africa, was quite a shock for sure.
Wow. And what kind of event would bring you to Senegal? I feel like I would like an invitation to Senegal.
Yeah, well, I actually volunteer for a lot of startup events. So this is
Okay.
my hometown university. They were actually collaborating with a university in St. Louis, Senegal. That's in the northern part, just really close to the Mauritania border. So so they were kind of multidisciplinary, multi-country with French people. This is in the francophonie, what we call, a lot of collaboration between French-speaking countries and regions. So it was with Belgium, Switzerland, France, and a couple of West African countries, and then Canada, of course. So yeah, it was just coaching the university students there that were working on entrepreneurship projects for kind of a 1 week startup creation event. So I was glad to get that invitation, take the opportunity to visit countries nearby too.
I'm fascinated. I've had a moment when I went to Reunion Island that this was maybe 2013, 14. I mean, there was very little on the internet anywhere in English, guidebooks. I mean, Lonely Planet has its, and then I went over to, oh geez, why am I blanking on the name? Mayotte. And it went from very little English available to almost nothing online. And yet I landed Mayotte, and there's these giant French resorts. There's these, I think it was even the A380s were coming in and unloading all of these tourists. And I realized how disconnected in some ways the francophone economy and it is in some respects from the rest of the world. That, I mean, this Mayotte just truly did not register at the time on any English tourist source, and yet it had this massive tourist infrastructure.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of French people, they really, they have the advantage of having so many territories all over the world. They really love Réunion. They really love Martinique and what's the other one? Guadeloupe in the Caribbean. They go to Bora Bora in French Polynesia. I think you probably saw that. And I think you're a bit of an Av geek as well. So you probably saw during the pandemic the world's longest domestic flight from Paris to Tahiti was like a 14-hour domestic flight. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember that domestic flight I took from Reunion to back to Paris. And I mean, since it's a Schengen, you do actually go through immigration when you arrive because of the Schengen aspect. So it wasn't quite like that. But yeah, I brought a bunch of passion fruits and had one passion fruit per hour of the flight and made it through the time that way. Um, I've been looking through Flytrippers and other fair deal sites. I mean, the struggle now, I mean, your core business is around flight deals, and you've got very clear disclaimers that a lot of markets now there aren't suitable flight deals, travel restrictions. So from an ethical and standpoint, how are you approaching things, and from a business standpoint, how are you getting through this time?
Yeah, so right now we're like if you've seen like on our US pages, we just stopped completely posting any flight deals. But in Canada, because we don't really have that many followers yet in the US. So in Canada, we have, let's say, about 150,000 social media followers. So we do have like a lot of people expecting deals. So we've decided for now to post only deals within Canada for the obvious reasons where like the border restrictions are the biggest hurdle for any type of travel right now. So within Canada, there are a few provinces that, like in the U.S., that have imposed some quarantines even within the country, but those are the exceptions. So mostly, within travel, Canadians can travel within Canada. So we've been able to promote deals to, we have the Canadian Rockies out west that all of us here in the east are pretty excited about visiting, which is very different from what we have. So there are still some opportunities to travel easily. And we're looking into, how can we restart promoting international flight deals responsibly. So for now, we've kind of put that on hold because the quarantine requirement for Canadians coming back is pretty restrictive. It's 14 days, no matter where you're coming back from. Mm-hmm. So that's, obviously a big hurdle for anyone who wants to travel internationally that doesn't have like unlimited time off from work. But once that's lifted, we'll probably start with, from the countries that are dealing with coronavirus well, like where the situation is stable and relatively safe, and where there are no entry restrictions. We'll probably start posting deals, but with the disclaimer that things can change. Like we were in Greece just a week and a half ago, and when we left, everything was going well. It was arguably one of the best countries in the world in how they dealt with the coronavirus up until 2 weeks from now. They've seen the curve go way back up. Still pretty good by most standards, but things change so quickly. So that's kind of the biggest hurdle. So what we recommend is if there's a really good deal internationally that's far away from 2021, like it might be worth risking it, given like so many airlines have flexible booking policies right now. So it could be worth the risk of buying and maybe not being able to go, given the the really good fares. We spotted $300 US round trips from big cities in Canada to Japan last week, which is not only unheard of, it's even better than US prices basically. And you have really good fares in the US. So we're not used to getting $300 round trip to Japan from the East Coast, from the eastern part of Canada. So
sure.
Like I would recommend, like, if you really want to go to Japan, like I think was your last Q&A was with he was living there in Japan now. It's an amazing country. It's not reopened yet, but if you're gonna book for like June of 2021 and you can get a 300 US round trip, I mean, it might be worth booking it. Maybe you'll lose, you'll lose a few dollars if you have to pay a change fee or new dates, but at that price, you can at least start thinking about it.
Yeah, there have been so many promotions from airlines, some very creative and interesting ones. I feel like there's always this moment of the what's the catch, and so are there any particular airline specific deals that are active now that are actually as advertised, in the sense of very flexible, and those that want to speculatively book can have confidence taking a look at them?
Yeah, well, usually I've never had a problem booking with online travel agencies, like independent, like little small sites, because 99% of the time, if you have nothing, no issues, no changes, and nothing, it's fine. But I'd probably recommend booking with airlines right now, just because I'm guessing most of the members of the group are based in the U.S. So a lot of basically all the U.S. airlines right now have flexible booking. So if you find a good fare, you'll at least get a free change, which is pretty much as good as it gets right now. So the fare deals change. I know domestic travel has been really cheap in the U.S. right now, like for the past few weeks. which, might not be the best idea anyways, given how the situation is in many places. But yeah, we're on the side of like, not, we don't want to be too pessimistic, because a lot of people are saying, oh, like with this crisis, airlines are going to be charging like crazy fares. It's going to be really expensive to fly. But, I'm more like seeing the bright side, that when it's safe to, get everyone starting to travel again and doing it responsibly, there actually might be really good fares, because they'll want to fill planes. They'll want, they want to catch up for all the lost revenue in the past, 6 months or so.
And you referred to your current trip. So you have a trip to Greece and Turkey, and I'm going to share in the show notes links. You've got some helpful articles around what it's like to fly from Canada during the pandemic, these experiences. Talk about your decision making. I'll share first your overview, how you decided to take the trip, and how you've managed along the way.
Yeah, so basically our reasoning was, having a travel website where we do spot the, the flight deals, but we also have a lot of travel tips and advice, and just general helping people travel more. And our reasoning was like, people are starting travel, not many, but some are starting, and eventually others will start again. And we don't want to encourage it necessarily. We like I've said, like in all of our articles about this current trip, I just really want to, be very clear with a disclaimer that it's not for everyone right now. There are risks. We've developed a useful guide with like 15 factors to consider, which we think are like the very most important factors that, decide should you travel. Like if you're 65 and at risk with coronavirus, you should probably stay home no matter what. If you're going to a country that's actually less hit by the, coronavirus, and the infection rate is a lot lower than where you are living, and if you're allowed to go, which is another big issue for you guys in the US right now. Not many countries are letting you in, but it could make sense based on your situation. But you really have to look at every factor, thoroughly. So we basically decided, like, let's go out and see how it is, on the ground, so that we know what the experience is like, and we can actually help people who are going to travel do it safely, do it responsibly. So we've really did this trip like every type of, different aspect of the travel experience that we can test. So we've stayed in hostels, we've stayed in hotels, we've stayed in Marriott hotels, Hilton hotels, we've stayed in independent hotels, we stayed in Airbnbs, just to try everything. We tried, renting a car, taking the train, taking the bus, taking ferries. So just to kind of get a glimpse of everything. Obviously, it's two countries, so it's not representative of the whole situation around the world, but it kind of gives an idea of what it is on the ground, like how, the travel industry is one of the biggest, industries in the world, and they've not had much choice. They've adapted like every other type of business with the new reality. So kind of wanted to see how that was on the ground, and how we actually felt, because we're biased because we love traveling, but not everyone is as eager to get out there, and so we wanted to see how the situation was.
And you referred to a we, so I'm curious who you're traveling with, and how, it's one thing to be a solo traveler at any time and making all the decisions and all the potential benefits or consequences at any time. When you have a travel partner, whether it's a spouse, friend, a family, that complicates things, and I feel like it certainly complicates things even more right now.
Yeah, well, actually, like, I spent about 3 months on the traveling out of, an average year, and I'm like 90% of those are solo trips. So I'm a big solo traveler, but the others I do with my girlfriend sometimes, like as much as she can from her limited time off. Mm-hmm. And now I'm with my friend and co-founder of Flytrippers. So he was actually a digital nomad. He left everything to work from all the different countries he could. We're kind of in a competition to visit as many countries as we can. So he just left off and visited, I don't know, like 40 some countries in the past 3 years, working from there. And now he had to come back to Canada because of the pandemic, just because the situation in March was so fluid. We didn't know, like, how the border situation would end up. He was in Thailand, and he wasn't sure if it was a great idea to stay there during the pandemic. So basically he came back, and he was, stuck in Canada for the past 6 months as well. So he was eager to get back. So we decided to go on a, 3-week business trip to actually see how it was. And actually, he's really useful because he's my coronavirus shield. So when we're in planes where there's no blocked middle seats, I sit him in the middle because he actually caught the coronavirus back in March. So he's not very stressed about the whole being infected part. So I can just sit him in the middle, and I can hide in the window seat, and as far as possible as from the aisle and where people are moving about.
So I've shared just now your 20 pictures from your trip, and I see a lot of empty, but you're encountering crowds in some situations. So.
Yeah, well, it's surprising because in parts of Greece when we were visiting, we were like, is there a pandemic here? Like it was we were expecting like the unfortunate parts of travel, like being unpleasant or having like restrictions or things being closed or just in general, just the experience being different. But the actual part of traveling, apart from having masks and keeping the distance, we're not big like partiers, or like if you go in a nightclub, probably if that's your like entertainment when you go traveling, that's probably very different right now, and you probably can't even do that. But like for the average traveler, like visiting like museums, visiting like especially in the Cyclades where we were in the Greek islands, I mean everything's outdoors. People are distancing. There's plenty of room. Like it's probably the year where there's like the least amount of tourists, so like, there's plenty of room. Situation was actually pretty good in Greece, but yeah, Turkey's another world. Like maybe I would say slightly they seem to be like not taking like distancing as seriously. Like, and not that they're not taking it seriously, but Greece was really really strict. Everyone was following the restrictions, and masks are mandatory inside in Greece, and everyone was wearing them. In Turkey, maybe like a little bit more situation where you see like people not like trying to avoid you, like in lineups where they would just scoot up all the way up to you, and they're wearing masks most of the time, but still you can see a little difference. But overall, I think I felt pretty safe in these two countries for most of the trip by taking my own precautions. Like I would recommend, like, don't rely too much on everyone else. You take your own precautions, and you can do it mostly safely and responsibly up to now. That's what we've been able to do, at least.
Yeah, I think Turkey is one of those countries where I've seen drivers will get that little seatbelt nub to click in so they can defeat the warning sign and still not have to wear a seatbelt. So I can imagine a few people are a little more casual in their nature.
Yeah, well, actually, we rented a car for the first time in Turkey, and we drove around. And just in general, I think they don't really like following any rules in general, like driving rules or anything. So maybe that's kind of the reason why they're not as they don't seem as taking as many precautions, let's say.
And what a fabulous country to drive around. I took a road trip a few years ago, one of my favorite road trips. Tell me about your itinerary.
This trip we didn't go to Istanbul or Cappadocia or Ankara or Antalya, because we've seen those in our two previous trips. So we decided to see the Aegean region. Izmir, and going down to like the turquoise coast, all the way down to Oludeniz, which is has a really beautiful blue lagoon. Like you feel like you're in the Caribbean, and the mountains on the coast. It's really nice. So we drove all around from Izmir to Oludeniz. I think it's like 300 miles or something, and did that round trip, just stopping in the nice little coastal towns. You almost feel like you're in Greece when you're in this. I mean, obviously it's just across the sea, but yeah, so it's a different, kind of a different vibe of Turkey if you're used to kind of the major Istanbul and Antalya, Cappadocia regions. So we were supposed to actually go to the Kurdistan, which the Turkish Kurdistan out east.
Mm-hmm.
Which was I've been there last December, and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to go back. But apparently this is kind of where the coronavirus hotspot is right now in Turkey. So just out of an abundance of caution, because that's kind of what we're vouching for, and we're kind of recommending everyone, like, be cautious if you're gonna travel, do it safely, do it responsibly. So kind of giving the example, we figured, okay, like if it's really worse over there, let's avoid that. And now we've changed our itinerary just to avoid that region. If hospitals are apparently getting a little crowded, and it's not going as well as in the the western parts, you've seen the peak of the pandemic and it's gotten better. So we figured we'd stay in this area. So now we're in Eskişehir. Eskişehir. Sorry for the pronunciation. So I'm not perfect in my Turkish yet, but so this is about midway between Istanbul and Ankara. Kind of just a new region to visit, just to get another glimpse of life in Turkey.
Oh wow! Yep, I've located it on the map. That's one that I've not through. My road trip was from Van in the east through Kurdish areas along through the Aegean coast and that. So the whole
Okay, that's a long road trip though, right? How many days did you take for that road trip?
Fewer than probably the speed limits were intended, I would say. But,
there are speed limits in Turkey? I never heard of that.
Well, actually, now that you mention it, there are speed cameras, very aggressive around Gaziantep and in certain regions around Istanbul. So driving through Gaziantep, as I was coming into the city, it's the expressway, and the speed limit drops, but it's still expressway. And I think it dropped to like 30 or 40, and I was less than 10 over. I was like 8 or 9 over. And the rental agency a few weeks later said, here's your $40 ticket that you need to find a way to send us money because of the Gaziantep speed camera. And then I went out and looked around in different forums, and there are these areas where they have these very tight speed cameras, which is very different than the rest of the country. And again, I wasn't going excessively, and this was an expressway, but just even less than 10 kilometers over it. It was a penalty in that area. And then other areas, as you see, they just have those like fake police cutout guys on the roadside.
Yeah, we saw those.
So and people are going way past anything that might be posted. So you just have to be cognizant. I clearly didn't notice that people were really slowing down to exactly that number, but it was a fabulous trip. And
the ones we saw, they actually had the pretty clear warnings about like there's a speed camera here, and then you'd see like every Turkish driver was really slowing down, and then as soon as they went past, they were like speeding all the way back up to like 30 over the speed limit. So it's not sure it's that efficient in terms of making traffic safer, but at least they're trying. Yeah, but I had that experience in Oman. I don't know if you've driven around in Oman. It's actually the only place in the world, except from home, where I got speeding tickets, and it was all with those speed cameras. I just got like an endless flow of like charges on my credit card from Avis, where there was like not big charges, but like I think I got 5 or 6 speeding tickets from Oman for like 2 days worth of driving. So they're really strict over there. So beware if you're in the Oman area.
I did drive there, but it was some years ago, so I don't believe they installed it. I think didn't United Arab Emirates also install a lot of cameras? Because I drove there in 2011 or 10 maybe, and I had this tiny little compact rental car that the wind would almost blow off the road, and all I would see is this like Mad Max dust storm behind me, and suddenly some white SUV would just come flying by at 180 kilometers an hour or something, and nearly blow me off the road. And
yeah, in most outside of North America, they're really big on the small rental cars, which like in Europe, it's actually kind of useful if you don't want to, have a hard time maneuvering around like these really tight old city corridors and everything. Like I was in Spain in the fall, and I specifically chose like the cheapest car. I wanted the small one. It's more useful in those tight cities, and they actually gave me like a huge like Buick, the equivalent of the Buick convertible car, but the Opel European version. And it was so huge. I had a hard time in like every small city. I had to just figured I'd park far from the city center and just take the bus in, because it was just such a big car, and it's really not as pleasant as if I had that little Fiat 500 car.
Yeah, they've got that whole category of cars that they have the mono wiper. They don't need 2 windshield wipers. They just have that one middle one, like the Chevy Aveo I've had in some countries. But yeah, I love it when a car I get is beaten up, scratched up, that and small for these points of similar experience with you, these narrow corners, and I cringe. Like somebody's like, "Oh, we're going to give you a brand new rental car. It hasn't been driven," and I'm like, "No, thank you." I, I would like to know that it's been broken in a little bit in multiple ways.
Yeah,
Needed
it's hard.
asking about your
It's
Kurdistan.
easier to hide new scratches when there are a lot of scratches already. So.
Yeah. Debjit's asking about your Kurdistan trip last year. Then, what areas did you visit? Favorites? Any issues with, say, checkpoints, police questioning for an independent traveler?
No, actually, it was a really short trip though, because it was on my way to the end point of that goal was to visit Iraq. So I went to Erbil to visit the Iraqi Kurdistan. So to make my way there, I spent it was 4 days in Şanlıurfa, which is often abbreviated just Urfa. So it's one of the main cities in southeastern Turkey. Honestly, my expectations were pretty low. I had literally never heard of Şanlıurfa. It was actually really nice. It's a surprisingly big city. There's people are really nice, and there's not many tourists there. Like really, like few people spoke English, so it was quite a culture shock and a nice place to visit. I definitely recommend Şanlıurfa. I felt absolutely safe. I was solo there and just walking around and never felt any. But I didn't go outside of the city much, so I just took the bus to Gaziantep that you just mentioned earlier from Şanlıurfa. But I took like the regular nice Turkish coaches, which was a fine experience and no checkpoints, anything at all. But that was kind of a limited, very limited sample size. But yeah, so I would definitely. That's why I wanted to go back. I had such a great time. I wanted to see Mardin, which is where we were supposed to go today. Mardin and Diyarbakir, which is apparently a little bit more of a hot zone with historically has been. Not as welcoming to tourists. So hopefully I get the chance to go back soon. But I would definitely recommend Şanlıurfa, without any issues, as a good base to visit the Kurdistan, because Mardin is a like 2-hour ride from there, and which is a really old historical city on the side of a mountain, which dates back to Mesopotamia, which is I think it was a 3,000-year-old city. So I didn't get the chance to visit last time, so that's why I wanted to go back. But definitely a nice area that's really different from the rest of Turkey. If you've been to Istanbul or anywhere else, it's obviously it's a whole different world.
Yeah, Mardin I did not visit. Diyarbakir I did visit, and it was during an election time, and there was a lot of signage and activities around that. It struck me as for a visitor, it's a little bit less walkable or maybe visually interesting of a city. Şanlıurfa I really enjoyed, and yeah, Google remembers me. It's telling me that the Hilton Garden Inn where I stayed is now $39 a night, and that's right near many of the historic sites, the religious pilgrimage sites. There's a huge new mosaic museum that's gorgeous. Gaziantep also has this incredible mosaic museum. The Şanlıurfa is the in situ where they uncovered this villa right there, and yeah, I remember my stay there of a couple nights. I felt like, yep, this is one that some of the months of the year would be very hot and dry, but when it's more temperate months, I'd love to hang out there and eat a lot of meat for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I was in there in December, so it wasn't, because I looked at the weather that was expected for this week was really hot, because it's almost desert-like. But in December it was fine. But it's funny that you mentioned the Hilton Garden Inn, because that's obviously where I stayed for 5,000 Hilton points a night on that trip. And the funny part is actually this trip was decided when you were talking about my reasoning process. But one of the reasons I'm in Turkey right now is actually because of the current Points Unlimited promo from Hilton. Well, not Points Unlimited. I don't remember what it's called, but the global promotion with Hilton right now is you get 2,000 points per stay. You get 10,000 points if you do 10 nights. And I'm a gold member, so I get welcome bonus of either 750 in the Garden Inns or 1,000 DoubleTrees, and there are a ton of really cheap Hilton hotels in Turkey. So that's kind of the first reason we were here in Turkey. I'm in a Hilton room right now. The Eskişehir is also a 5,000 point a night hotel, which is it's brand new. It was just built 3 years ago, the guy said, and it's 5,000 points a night. So it's a real steal. And where we're going tomorrow in Kütahya, it's actually selling for 30. I think it was even cheaper than $39 a night, because it was 37 Canadian. So do the math on that. It's about $30 US for a Hilton night. So that's pretty cheap.
Yeah, and it's I mean that hasn't changed. And even on my trip a couple years ago, there was a Hampton Inn in the slightly outskirts of Istanbul, but a very nice area, and connected right to the light rail right into downtown. That was 5,000 points. I've heard that one did eventually go up, but I calculated my Hilton account would get me like 4 months of stays at some of these. I mean, it was just and even in tourist spots like Kusadasi, a DoubleTree, I think that was maybe 10,000 points a night, and they upgraded me into this whole villa suite, the whole house that I had, and this was in normal tourist time, so I can only imagine, and especially you're talking about towns that are in smaller regional centers. These are not tourist destinations. That the Hilton footprint is superb. Radisson was my backup. A number of towns had good value Radissons. The other programs less represented or more like Marriott. Actually, a friend was just looking at a trip for I think the resorts in Bodrum, and Marriott has these two ultra luxury resorts that are like category 7 or something for Marriott. And I said,
Yeah, category 7.
That's a heck of a lot of points to pay when you've got Radisson Blue and you've got the DoubleTree and all those up and down the coast. It's got to be something really. I don't know those properties. The cash rates right now even are like what, 900 euros. I don't know what they've got going on there, but the DoubleTree and Kusadasi that I stayed at, from what I've seen of the Radisson Blue around the way, I mean that seems plenty luxurious to me for a tenth of the points or cash cost.
Yeah, well, I think we agree on that with the whole luxury travel points world is obviously like the most popular way, but like in our situation where we're trying to visit every country in the world, I mean, it just makes so much sense to try to stretch your points further, and that's why like you were talking about Marriott. If you do, for those who are interested, have Marriott points. There's a actual full service Sheraton hotel directly on the Black Sea in Samsun, which looks marvelous. It's a category 1. And so if you get that off peak, that's 5,000 points a night, it's a steal. You stay 5 nights there, you get one free. It's very, very cheap. So there are actually 4 Marriott category 1s in Turkey. That's the top one. Like the Sheraton looks really nice. I haven't been yet, but that's a future trip for sure. There's one in Izmir. There's one in the outskirts of Istanbul, and the other one's in, don't remember the 4th one. I think it's in Bursa, which is just south of Istanbul. But yeah, Turkey is such an affordable country. Like that's the reason why we didn't spend like the whole 3 weeks in Greece, because we're budget travelers. So like Greek islands are great, and we were surprised we were able to do like not too bad with with keeping a low budget for the Cyclades. We didn't go to Santorini, so we kind of avoided the most expensive Santorini and Mykonos. We went to Naxos, Eos, and Paros, so 3 just as beautiful, but less crowded, a little cheaper. And then with Turkey being so cheap, and like even if you've been to Turkey, like even as recently as last year, their currency has been devalued. I think it's with 30% just in the last 6 months. So it's really bad, unfortunate for them, but for us travelers getting there, it's even more cost effective in terms of everything was already cheap, but now it's even like 30% cheaper. So
wow. Tell me about how you're thinking about your journey to every country in the world. We've heard about opportunistic in terms of fair deals and costs and budget. How are you? Do you have a master plan?
Well, the master plan is to whenever I get a chance to get on a really cheap deal to destinations that are expensive to fly to, I always jump on those and try to visit a few countries, which I know the slow travel movement is it's really popular, and it makes sense. I mean, I wish I could spend a lot more time in every country and really get to know them, but yeah, for me, it was just being so limited and just being able to travel like a set number of weeks in a year. I always try to visit at least 2 new countries in a trip, and hopefully more. Like when I bought this one was a really good deal, under 300 round trip from Montreal to Beirut last year, which is phenomenal, and that never basically never comes on sale. It was just a really good fair sale from Royal Jordanian through Amman. So 300 US round trip. Okay, let's buy that. Went to Lebanon, which they've been in the news in the past month for obviously very bad reasons, but it's a beautiful country. I thoroughly enjoyed Lebanon and Beirut specifically. Cool city. And there's obviously, it's a fly in, fly out country. You can go to Syria, which obviously you are well aware of. But apart from Syria, there's not really another country to visit nearby. So, and I've already been to Israel, so I was looking at the map, and Cyprus was just a 1 hour flight, so just grabbed a cheap flight to Cyprus. That way, got two countries at least, and was able to knock off those two. But yeah, so basically, I'm always on the prowl for those really cheap international deals, and then I try to build trips around those.
And yeah, I'm just thinking separated by such painful politics and history, but if you talk about tourist interest per square foot or meter, Lebanon and Israel both pack in just such an incredible amount of variety, history. I mean, just so central to human civilization. It is incredible. And Lebanon's wild. I mean, both are one that I've not had long enough visits at all, and both I want to spend significant time in both at some point.
Yeah, well, actually, Israel was my first international trip ever, and it was a great, first. It was a pretty intense first experience, but I definitely loved it, and ever since that day, I've really had like this affection for the Middle East. There's so many, like, so different. There's it's a really cool part of the world, even though it's often in the news for obviously bad reasons. But just going there and seeing it for yourself, you realize how it's not all it's not all the bad you see on the news. There's so many nice people. Everyone are so welcoming to tourists and to travelers, and I've never had a bad experience in the Middle East, and I've been to, I think, like 7 or 8 countries in the region, or even more. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that there's that combo. There's the culture of hospitality, and then also the culture of spontaneity that I think combines to make such a wonderful spark for tourists to be able to dive into the culture and swim along, so to speak. You mentioned entrepreneurship and these entrepreneurship events, such as the one in Senegal. People that are interested in starting businesses, talk about these different networking and events and organizations that you're a part of. Oh, I think his connection dropped for a moment. We'll get him right back in. He was doing a great promotion for the Turkey Tourism Board, so I don't think they pulled the plug on him, but connections can be finicky. So we'll see if we can get him back in a minute. And here he comes. All right. Perfect. You were promoting doing a good work for the Turkey Tourism Board, so it couldn't have been that the connection shut you off. I was asking about entrepreneurship, and you referred to different organizations, national, international, that whole startup culture. Talk about it on an international scale for others interested in starting up their businesses.
Yeah, well, I would definitely recommend, if you have like even the slightest inkling, or just even wondering what it's, what it could be like. It's this called the Startup Weekend. So it's an organization that's all across the world. They've done Startup Weekend events in, I think, pretty much every country, or close to. And these, well, obviously with the pandemic right now, it's kind of, I think all in-person events are probably on hold, like, momentarily. But when things get back to normal, so this is basically, you have to commit to a full weekend of experiencing what it's like to launch a business. So you get there on the Friday night, you pitch your idea if you have one, or you can just join other, there's usually about like 50 to anywhere from 50 to 100 people that are interested in entrepreneurship. You have like the whole spectrum, like, those hardcore, startup fans that are just there at all these events just to have fun, and then those are really like just starting, want to see what it's like. So you get together, you form teams, and you have a whole weekend to actually prepare a business plan and just present an idea to a jury on the Sunday night. So it's very fast paced. The slogan is all action, no talk. So it's not about like, I wish I do something in one weekend. You'll see what all the steps are, and you'll kind of be confronted to the reality, and then you either you decide, this is really fun, I'd like to it's not that hard to start a business if you just decide to do it and put in some effort and get a team together that has complementary skill sets. And then basically this is the idea is not actually to have a business at the end of that weekend that will continue on. Some do, but it's really about the process, learning what it's and usually people, if they've been like a bit interested about launching a business, gives them a really good idea of, okay, this is really something I should pursue, and look further. And you obviously make really good connections and build a network of like-minded folks in your city. And like I said, these are really cheap events. Like usually, like there's a nominal attendance fee just to make sure that people that are there are committed and serious. And you get all your meals for the whole weekend. You get to meet a lot of cool people, and you have a blast for a weekend. And that's really the best way if you're interested in starting a business. It's a good time investment to see if you really like it.
Fantastic. And of course, the in-person events are on hold now. But what have you been seeing the past few months about how entrepreneurs are reacting to the situation or creating new opportunities? What has been thought-provoking, interesting, inspiring?
Well, I mean, entrepreneurs by nature, they're used to persevere and adapt to it, because every day is different. And I've been an entrepreneur for like 3 years now, and from the idea when we started Flytrippers, and from even just a month later, obviously it had completely pivoted and changed like so many times since then. Like we have to be always on the lookout for what the situation, how we can better adapt to everything that's going on. And now, like, arguably the biggest cataclysmic change or event in our lifetimes is this pandemic. And it's been interesting to see how every industry has had to adapt, and most have been innovating and doing interesting stuff. So it's encouraging, but in a way there's also like so many people that have struggled. And like just in the travel industry, I mean, we look at our in our developed countries, or at least where I'm from, and like a lot of the group members are in the US. I mean, it's kind of we're biased because we're in a better situation. That just imagine someone who had a small tour company in Indonesia that was 100% dependent on tourism, and their governments don't have like as many means to support and to kind of help out, just for obvious reasons. So it's sad to see how many people are struggling. Hopefully like any challenge, it allows people to rise above and think of new ways to innovate. So hopefully the worst is behind us for the most part. Let's hope.
Yeah, I'm thinking of different tourist entrepreneurs I had met in Syria last year, where 7-8 years their guest house was shut down, some occupied, damaged, different things. And you think about what that means. I mean, when there is no other outlet, as you said, no government program to keep things on. And even now, I mean, the tourism industry is so big, but it's not powerful in a lot of politics, it seems, because it's not a concentrated industry like say energy, where you've got oil companies that can buy their influence, and tourist industry is so scattered. I mean, the airlines have their own size and scope, but a lot of it is these small business people that don't have that political strength. Hopefully there is a way forward soon for many of them. We'll close with many of us are used to going all over the world for these remote, unusual places, and now a lot of us, by requirement or by choice, are staying in our home country. So let's talk your home country. You've got a post which I'm sharing, the most visited national Canadian parks in each province, and as a perspective, the most visited park in Nunavut had 853 visitors last year. So you've got some really remote places. Some of these are extremely hard to get to. I know I've looked, but from the country collector's hat, for people in Canada, they've overlooked aspects of their country. What are some of the spots to seek out while they can't get their fix elsewhere?
I'm actually I've been to a lot of countries, and I haven't even seen many of the really cool spots in Canada, which is a shame, and I take the blame for that. I should have visited my own country a lot more, but the attraction of new places and new cultures has always been stronger. But obviously, like, Canada is one of the most popular destinations for a lot of people, both in the U.S., Europeans, and if you like nature, obviously out west. My co-founder, who's here with me, he actually lived out west in the Rockies for a couple of summers, and obviously, it's one of the most beautiful places, arguably, in the world. So that's basically all the interest that we've had in with the data we have from our user on our website, like where people are looking for flights, and it's basically all in British Columbia and Alberta, because the national parks right now, distancing is a lot easier in nice national parks. So that's a really cool place. But I'll talk. I like your stat about the 800 visitors in Nunavut, but I'll mention one that's even more surprising. There's actually a real national park in the Northwest Territories that had a total of 2 visitors last year. Two. That's it. Like, literally 2 people went there. That's mind-boggling to me. How it's, you want remote, that's really remote. So if you want nature and the territories, I've never actually been to any of the Canadian territories up north. It's just on my bucket list. I know we have a lot of, you're a points enthusiast. I know from meeting you in basically every points event that I've been to, you're always there. So if you have Aeroplan miles, or obviously like Amex points that are transferable to Aeroplan, the really nice sweet spot right now is you can go to any Canadian territory for just 25,000 miles round trip, which is really a steal if you look at the cash prices that are really expensive. So this will change at the beginning of November, because the program is completely changing. So if you really want to visit the Canadian territories, if you're American, maybe your border will open to you like within the next year. So all you have to do is book before November. You can book 1 year ahead, and hopefully you can lock in that really cheap price for Aeroplan miles. That's one of the best sweet spots that's unfortunately leaving the program. So if you want to go to the Yukon, Northwest Territories, those look like really fabulous places, and I've never been. So I have to go and do my country proud and actually see them for myself. But if you like something that's kind of different that you don't expect from Canada, is actually Newfoundland Island. So I know, like, Fogo Island, the very luxurious hotel, has been really popular with Americans in the past years, but just the island, you don't really feel like you're in Canada. It just joined Canada like 70 years ago. It was basically a completely different place. So that's kind of a close by. Like, you can fly there from the East Coast for, it's really short. So a nice place that I've very much enjoyed.
Yeah, the second the announcements came out about the new Aeroplan program, and there's like many things, there's wins, losses. But I immediately thought to those. And the airline's rebranded. It's Canada North now. Is the name?
Yeah. So it was Canadian North, and there was another one. They actually merged, so now it's Canadian North. Yeah.
So that covers both the West and the East.
Yeah, so the 2 airlines merged, and now they're under one name, and a larger network. So that's one of the partnerships that will remain in the new program, but it's just not going to be as attractive in terms of price, because it's going to be revenue based, and those prices are really expensive. So
yeah, and that is one I'm going to try to look at proactively booking for next summer, because that has been a points traveler. Hidden gem that I know some have taken it just as far as they can get to the north, and either on the east or the west, and had some incredible experiences in these very small communities. And if that's possible and safe, say in a year's time, I hope to take advantage of that sweet spot. And as I understand, I mean, there's so many changes to the Aeroplan program, but specifically domestic travel in Canada. As I recall, the current program has certain short distance awards that are regional based. So if you're departing, say, in New Brunswick, and you're going to Nova Scotia, it can be a much lower fixed price. Or is that all going away too? It's all just going revenue based?
Yeah. So basically, for right now, for Air Canada flights, there was kind of a short haul rebate, because it was only on Air Canada metal, so you couldn't do that with partner airlines. It was for neighboring provinces and states. So that was 15,000 round trip instead of the 25,000 for all of North America. So that's all going away, but now it's going to be distance based. So if you're flying from the US and you have United flights that are, United serves like I think the 10 or 11 largest Canadian airports. So you got a pretty good network, and those will remain a fixed price. It's actually going down in price in some cases. It's going to be 6,000 instead of 7,500. But it really depends on where you're leaving from, because now it's really distance based on the distance flown. So really, your mileage may vary. But Air Canada flights on Air Canada Metal are all going dynamic. So that's going to be 100% revenue based. So that's less appealing for at least for budget travelers who like to get the outsized value of your miles. But flying United probably is going to be a really good value, depending on the specific routes.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic Mileage Plus will be adding Canadian North, but I've just shared the current award chart, and if you scroll down to the section called Short Haul Fixed Mileage Flight Awards in North America, you can see even places like Nunavut that, depending where you're departing from, you can trigger it, and where your trip might be starting, it might even be cheaper to position on a separate award or ticket to get to one of those and continue up. Do the comparison shopping, but I need to get on that and get something figured out for these incredible spots. So I've got my
it's literally once in a lifetime. It's going away, so it's the time is now.
Okay, well, I will take my homework. You get back to enjoying your trip and sharing such useful and responsible travel information. Thank you for joining us tonight, Andrew.
Thank you.